I was buried in $40,000 of student loan debt. I had no real dreams for my future other than I just thought I would be stuck as a teacher my entire life. I wasn't happy, and now I have a business that I love. I've generated millions and millions of dollars online. I've got multiple employees. I was able to buy my wife a Mercedes cash. We're about to build a 7-figure house this year. My life is exactly how I want it to be now, but I never thought it would be this way. I never thought I would become a millionaire, but I have. And it's because I started an online business. So I do want to do like a little bit of a disclaimer. This isn't something that happened quickly. It's been 8 years since I started my journey to now. It's been extremely painful. I've been scared most of the time that I did this. I failed a lot. And it's not something that I think everybody can do overnight. And I'm not saying any of this to brag. I'm just saying this because I want you to know what's possible, because you can go from buried in debt and lost to the best version of yourself if you just work really hard and you follow your dreams. So I feel like I was like very average in high school. I had pretty bad grades. I was like a C student at best. That I really kind of sucked at school, to be honest with you. My parents thought I had ADHD. I was not on a track to be really successful at all. When I was a senior in high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had been in band for many years, and that was the only thing that I felt like I was actually good at. And so I was trying to decide between either being a band director or being an entrepreneur. But I didn't think I could actually be a business owner. I didn't have the confidence in myself to do it. And I didn't even know what it took to be a business owner. So I decided to get a music degree. It took me 5 years, and I knew the first year that I got into college that I didn't actually want to be a band director. I felt like I was going down the wrong path in my life. But through that process, I built up $40,000 of student loan debt. So I felt like I just had to keep going. I kind of just convinced myself, I think a lot of people do this, where I just said, this is just how my life is going to be. It'll be okay eventually. I'll start making money. Everything will be better. And I remember being so broke that like if a check didn't come in for $250 for a month, I was freaking out. Like I was just like beating down the school's door, calling people trying to get that $250 check, because I wouldn't say that I was actually particularly good with money either. Even though I was in debt, I didn't really act like it. I didn't really live that way. And I didn't realize what it was going to do to my life if I, just kept going down a path of spending everything I made. After I got out of college, there was a period of time where I graduated, and then I got a letter that said that you have 6 months before you have to start paying your loans off. I remember opening the letter and then reading it going, I don't know what this means. And then I closed it and I just put it back in the envelope. I never read it again. And then eventually the Sallie Mae bills started coming in the mail, and I was like, oh crap, I actually have to pay these loans back. Fortunately, I had gotten a teaching job at that time, but I didn't know, I didn't understand how much interest I was going to be paying. I didn't understand that on my teaching salary of $50,000 a year, which I felt rich at the time when that started coming through, I didn't realize like how much of that was actually going to start going to just debt I'd accumulated through college. And the crazy thing about it is like everybody I knew had debt. Every teacher that I knew had student loans. It was like this super normal thing where everybody came out of college and they were immediately paying debt. Nobody was talking about paying it off soon or faster than you needed to. So I continued through, I graduated, and I got my first job. And from pretty much the first day that I walked in, I felt trapped. And I felt like I had, again, messed up, but I was like, well, maybe I'll just keep going with this. It'll be fine someday. But I just, in the back of my head, I had this idea of like, I don't want to be in my 40s as a band director making $50,000 a year. I didn't even know how long it was going to take to pay the debt off. I just knew that I would just start making payments, and then eventually the loans would go away someday, probably like decades later. So basically from the time that I graduated from college, my girlfriend already had a job. I was broke, I was 40K in debt. We decided to move in with her parents, and we rented a 10 by 10 bedroom for $500 a month. And I lived like that for years. I think we lived there for 3 years. I think it was either 2 or 3 years, but in my first couple of years of teaching, we were just living in this tiny 10 by 10 bedroom. It was a really uncomfortable situation. I'm super grateful that they let us do it. And at the time, my girlfriend, now wife's father was sick. He had muscular dystrophy that he eventually passed away from. And that's when, pretty much through that process, just seeing him go down that road, because he was young, he was like 54 when he got on hospice. And I looked at that and I was like, life is really short, right? Like we only get so many years. And I was miserable in my teaching job. I went to work every day. I hated it. I remember just sitting in the car, and it was the same drive every single day. And I would just drive to school and I just dreaded it. I would sit in the parking lot for 10 minutes before I actually went in to just kind of clear my head and prepare myself to go in there, because I had to start teaching right away. And I didn't want to live like that for the rest of my life. Seeing Bill basically die in front of us made me feel like I've got to do something different. And one day, my girlfriend introduced me to a guy named Jim, who was a family friend. It was her dad's best friend. And all I knew about him was that he was a business owner. He owned a swimming pool company. And she was like, hey, he's got a boat and he wants to go water skiing. Do you want to go? And I'd never gone before. So I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And I'll never forget this. We were basically going down the lake. There was all these beautiful mansions by us. Like, time we were looking at all of them, I was like, man, I want to live in one of those someday. And Jim was like, you'll never live in one of those if you have student loan debt and you're a teacher. And I just remember going like, oh crap, like he's right. And so after that, I just decided to throw everything I could at my student loans. So we stayed in the 10 by 10 bedroom. I threw $1,800 a month of my teaching salary, which I think my take-home pay was $3,400 a month. Every time I could do it, I made a payment towards my loans. And then 18 months later, I paid off my student loans. It was a grind, it sucked, and I just sacrificed for a very long time. All of my friends were doing stuff that I couldn't do, right? And they were going out on vacations and doing all this cool stuff, and I was living in this tiny little bedroom. But once I made that last payment, I'll never forget, I was sitting at the kitchen table in my now in-laws' house, and I made that last payment. And I like looked around and nobody was there, and I was like, holy crap, I'm debt free. Like, this is amazing. I had seen all these, I started researching like ways to make money online. I saw this blog, budgetsaresexy.com, and this guy Jay Money was making 80 grand a year as a blogger. And I was like, holy crap, how do I do that? And so I started looking into it, and I was like, I think I can start a blog, and I think I can start writing about my student loan story, because I was like, nobody's talking about this. And I just started writing like whatever I thought about money. And I didn't really know anything back then, but I knew that you could pay off student loans fast if you just hustled and live below your means and all of that. So I just started writing about that, and I was sharing it on Facebook. And one day it kind of like went mini viral. All my friends started sharing it. They were like, I didn't even know that you knew anything about money. This student loan story is amazing. And I was like, oh, there might be something here, right? Like I might be able to do this. So I kept going for 6 months. I hadn't made a single dollar, but I was so miserable, and I was thinking about Bill, and I was like, I have to get out of teaching. And so I talked to my wife, still my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, I think I'm gonna quit my teaching job. Like I think that I'm gonna do this blog thing. And I'll never forget, she just went, okay, that sounds cool. Like she was down like from the beginning, and I was like, I'm gonna marry her.
Several months later.
And so everybody was on board, so I went in the next day and I quit. And that was the best feeling I've ever had. I walked in, I knew it was gonna be my last day like officially teaching there. It was the best day I had as a teacher because I was just happy the entire day. We got to the end of the day, just me and my boss in the office, and I was like, hey man, I gotta talk to you. I'm gonna quit my job. I'm starting this blog, and you can't change my mind. I'm already out. So I'll never forget driving out of the parking lot the last time, just knowing like I'm never going back to this. And then that is where all of the really scary shit started, because it was really cool thinking I was going to quit my job and become an entrepreneur and start this blog. I didn't make money from the blog for 6 months, like $0. And that's when reality hits you, right? Like I took the leap of faith, and I felt like I was well prepared for it. After I had stopped paying my student loans, I was just putting money away every month. So I had a little bit of a nest egg that I could fall back on. But that's when things got scary, and that's when things got dark. And I woke up for the first time in my life, I had a panic attack at like 3 a.m. because that's when it all set in. It's like when the paycheck goes away, that's when things get real, right? Like that's when you become an entrepreneur. And so I was like, well, what can I do, right? And I had recently proposed to my girlfriend, so she was my fiance at the time. And I remember the jeweler that made my wife's ring, his website sucked. It was really bad. He had somebody managing it, and through the process of buying the ring, he kind of talked to me a little bit about like what I do. And I was like, I'm a blogger, even though I was not making any money doing it. I was telling people I was a blogger. And then one day I just kind of pitched I was like, hey man, your website's not very good. I think I can make it better. And so we jumped on a call. He was just like, well, what do you think you can do for me? And I was like, well, I can basically do everything I'm doing for Millionaire Money Man. I can write content. I can try to see if I can get it to rank in Google for, the keywords that you want to rank for. And he was like, okay, so how much would you charge me? And I had to think about it because I had never pitched anybody any services before. I didn't even know what the service was worth. And I just kind of thought for a second, and I was like, $3,000 a month, which was like right around what I needed to like survive. That was like a little bit less than what I was taking home as a teacher. And he thought about it, and he was like, that doesn't scare me. He's like, let's do it. And so that was it, the first freelancing client that ever hired me. And I managed to keep him as a client for 4 years. We're talking over 6 figures just from that one phone call, right? So that's when I realized, like, as soon as he said yes to $3,000, I was like, oh, there's a lot of money out here that I didn't realize was out here, right? Like, I had always thought, like, you work a set amount of hours, you get a paycheck. And so from there, I got a few more clients, right? But I was really still focused on the blog. Like, the blog was the thing that I really wanted. That was my dream. So I actually picked up, I think, an attorney. I picked up a deer meat processing client. So it's like, if you go hunting, you bring the deer in, they process the meat for you. It was like local SEO and content marketing, what I was doing. Also email marketing. So that's how I learned email marketing. That's how I learned how to do Facebook ads, because I was so scared of losing my clients because I had nothing to fall back on, that I had to learn all the skills, right? And I was self-taught. It was like a lot of YouTube. It was a lot of Google, trying to figure out how to do things, and a lot of just testing and failing. But I built a nice little content marketing agency, but I still wanted to do the blog. And so I was just like hustling on that. I was writing content all the time. I was on social media constantly. I remember tweeting all the time, like just always taking time to tweet and build my following. And I was like following a bunch of people so they would follow me back. And then September, I think it was September of 2016, after I'd been grinding for a very long time, not making any money, I had a reporter from CNBC reach out. And they were like, hey, we saw your student loan story. And I don't even remember where I shared it. But they were like, we saw your student loan story about paying off $40,000 in 18 months, and we want to interview you. And then the story went live on CNBC. And that was when I started making money with the blog. It was the first time that I had enough traffic that I could actually monetize it. And I started doing affiliate marketing. So basically from the time that I started the blog to when I got the CNBC feature was about a year of just like complete grind, $0 coming in, and just hoping that it would work out. And even honestly, when the CNBC story happened, I wasn't getting rich by any stretch. I think that month, I think I made like $1,100, something like that. But that felt like a lot to me. And I remember I actually got a sponsored deal. It was my first sponsored deal ever. It was $400, and I like negotiated the deal, and I thought I was like hot shit because I was like, I'm going to charge $400 for this. And really the bulk of what I was still making was coming from the agency work. Like the service work it was reliable, it was steady. So like all in all, I was probably doing somewhere between 60 and 70K top line revenue a year with the agency work, which still was great. Like the margin, it was me doing all the work. So I was still making good money. At least I felt like that was really good money at the time. And so I was kind of splitting my time 50-50. And then there came a time where I wanted to make my first info product. I wanted to teach people how to do the digital marketing that I was doing myself. I really felt like the way to go was like the courses, because I felt like courses would give me leveraged, I could time leverage the courses. I could sell them passively. And I had seen all these people in the blogging space that were making money with courses. So I was like, well, I want to do that too. And I had a friend from high school that I knew was doing Facebook ads. His name was Mike Yonda. We got on a call and I was like, hey man, do you want to like partner up? You want to do this together? And so we kind of came to an agreement on the course. And so we put the course together and the first email went out. And I remember we sat there and we waited for sales to come in. And we're like, is this going to happen? Like, are we going to get a sale? And then I think it was probably 10 minutes later, the first one came in and we were like, holy crap, we did it. We sold a course. And then it was like another notification and another one and another one, another one. And it just started flooding in. And we did 25 grand the first day with a $247 product, right? So we were like, holy crap, that was the most money I'd ever made in a day. And then the next day it was slower. And so we were like, oh no, is it dead? Like, are we gonna make it? And we thought, we ended up doing $12,000 that day. And so we thought like, oh man, it's weird how it went from like feeling like we had just crushed it to even doing $12,000, which is still more than I had made in a day. We thought it was failing. And then Sunday came. It was the last day of the launch. We were feeling pretty good. We were like, okay, this is cool. This is viable. Like, we've made great money. And so sales just started coming in on Sunday. And it was like really, really good. We had done, I think, by the time we got to like 8 p.m. on Sunday night, I think we had done probably something like 40 grand that day. So it was like crazy. And so we were going to go celebrate. And Mike is big on like bottles. He likes to buy like bottles of wine or something to celebrate. And so he was like, go buy a bottle of wine. I'll buy the same bottle of wine and like we'll watch as the launch wraps up. And so I went to the store and I had never bought nice wine before. So like nice to me was like $10 to $12, right? Like that was like bottom shelf stuff, but that was all I knew. And so I remember sitting there and looking at, like I walked in the store, I was looking at these bottles of wine. And I saw this one called Papillon that was $50. And I for legitimately probably 5 minutes sat there and stared at it. And I was like, should I spend this money on this wine? I had no idea. I thought it was like a bad purchase, whatever. So I was sitting there, I really struggled with that. And then I remember looking down at my phone. From the time I had walked in the store from my car, we had made like $3,000, like in 5 minutes or something. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to buy the wine. So I bought the wine. We went home. We sent the last email out, 8 p.m. We hit the send button, and we did, I think, $70,000 or something crazy within, the next 4 hours. So all in all, first course launch we ever did, we made $136,000 in revenue in 3 days. And we shut it down for a month. We reopened it in March, and we did another $129,000 of revenue. And we went from there, those first 3 months, to our first $1 million in 14 months, all with a less than $300 product. And so from that moment on, I was like, I'll be able to make money no matter what, because now I know this skill, right? Like now I can launch and create anything. And really from there, it's just progressed. We've done well over 4 million, probably somewhere between $4 and $5 million with that business. And then the pandemic hit. That's where we started to run into our first struggles as a company over at Laptop Empires, because obviously you remember the entire world shutting down. We taught a course that taught people how to do local Facebook marketing for like brick and mortar companies. So obviously that's a tough sell in the pandemic. And we were fortunate, like it still sold and businesses didn't shut down, right? Like if you remember, there was a period of time very, very early in the pandemic, things did shut down. I remember we were doing a launch actually of the product as we were doing the 14 days to stop the spread, or however many days it was. And that launch actually went pretty well. But then after that, we just started to struggle with sales more than normal. Like we were getting sales, but it wasn't at a really high clip. And that continued for a few months until things started to kind of open back up. So our sales picked back up, but it was never to the level that, we were doing before, right? The pandemic definitely hurt that business. And so we decided that we were going to create a high ticket program, teaching people how to do what we had done with the Facebook Side Hustle course, and start, scaling their business, their course business. And I think that's when I started to realize one of the big differences between Mike and I was that Mike really wanted more time. Like he has 3 kids. He really values like how much time he spends with his children. He wants to be present in their lives. And I wanted to scale, and I wanted to build a big team. And not for the sake of just having a big team, but like, I'll be very honest, just being a solo blogger and a solo entrepreneur, everybody talks about how that's the best way to start a business, and it's great not to have teams and you don't have to worry about all the expenses and overhead. I remember sitting in coffee shops writing for Millennial Money Man being depressed because it was just me and it sucked, right? And I had gotten to this point early on in Millennial Money Man where I had the dream, right? Like I was making about 10 grand a month from that company, and I had complete freedom. Like the hardest thing I had to do every day was choose like which coffee shop I was going to work in that day. And it was like the dream life that everybody tells you online, like this is what you should do. And I remember being very empty and very lonely and very depressed and going like, this can't be it. Kind of similar to like when I was a teacher, I was like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Like this kind of sucks more than I thought it would. So I knew I wanted to start building a team because it's more fun for me to work with people than it is to work by myself. And so I knew that was kind of a rub between me and Mike, or, between Mike and I, but I kind of felt like if we were making money, it wouldn't matter, right? So we created this plan. We created a product called the Course Growth Accelerator program, and we started selling it, and initially it did really, really well. I think maybe our first month into it, I think we did like 50K in sales with it. And I remember we were like celebrating. It was amazing. We had a really good sales team, or we had a really good setter at the time and a really good closer. And then it just, as we started to scale, I think we made the biggest cardinal mistake that you can make with the business. We tried to grow the team too fast. And I think a lot of that was on me because I am so team heavy. And so I really pushed for like, let's hire more people. Let's get an operations person in. Let's, more assistants, more, all this stuff, right? So we had built this business that was like really ready to scale, but we hadn't figured out the sales to the level we needed to yet, right? So then we started really relying on those sales to pay the expenses that were coming in with the team. And that's never a position that you want to be in business. I didn't realize that because I'd been a solopreneur for so long. But we really started feeling the pressure of like, we've got to get these sales. And once you do that, if you put that kind of pressure on your sales team, they fold. It's not fair to your team, right? So we really struggled, and we got to a point where we just decided like, this doesn't feel worth it anymore. We're grinding so hard. We're meeting with the sales team every single day trying to make things work. And it's just not happening at the scale that we wanted. So we decided to shut the program down. And the decision at the time was like, let's shut it down and just run Facebook Side Hustle. It had recovered, a decent amount from when the pandemic hit. And so we just kind of decided like, let's just make this a little bit more of a lifestyle business. And then I'm going to go and focus on Millennial Money Man. And I'm going to grow that team. And so that's what I did. I started putting money that I was making from Laptop Empires into Millennial Money Man to grow that business into what I wanted, which was a full team, full-time employees at scale. I wouldn't say I was doing that super strategically. I think that I didn't have the most knowledge on how to grow a business. And I think that's been kind of the story of my entrepreneurship journey in general is like, I didn't have a formal background in this. I didn't go to school for a business degree. I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, like most of the time, and I still feel like sometimes I don't. I've just had to learn through a lot of painful lessons along the way, and a lot of expensive lessons, but I have a good friend of mine that told me that you don't learn your lessons in the green, you learn them in the red, which has been absolutely the case for me. And so I took everything that I've learned from Laptop Empires and the failures that we've had over there trying to scale, and I wanted to do Millennial Money Man differently. And the goal was to have a team of full-time employees that started small and then we didn't grow too quickly, right? We wanted to invest in the company as much as we could, but not to the point where it was just people for the sake of people. We wanted to really fill out full-time roles. So in 2022, in January, I hired my first full-time employee and it was really scary. I didn't know if we were gonna actually be able to afford it in that company. And we struggled, for a long time. That whole year of 2022 was fun and we had a lot of cool ideas, but we didn't have a lot of revenue. But we were able to still kind of like keep it going. I cut my pay, which a lot of entrepreneurs don't talk about this. And actually in 2022, I was the lowest paid employee in the company. It's one of those things like you hear these entrepreneurship stories and everybody's like, I made millions of dollars and it was so, amazing and I scaled and everything was perfect and I've got a Lamborghini now. But most of entrepreneurship in the beginning is like, you have to be the one that sacrifices first. If you want to grow a company, right? You can ask your employees to sacrifice, but they're not going to stay with you. So I ended up cutting my pay, and then really at the end of 2022, we got to a point where we had to do a new website, and it was a big project. The project had cost us about 50 grand to do a new website, but we needed it to be competitive. And I thought that I had figured all of it out perfectly to where we were going to cash flow extremely well. And I was like, it's going to get tight in December, but it's not going to, I think we're going to make it. And then we got an invoice at the end of the year for the last payment of the website. And I realized we were going to be upside down 20 grand in the company. So I decided that I was going to put 50 grand into the company just to keep us afloat. So that was basically enough to keep us at even and then give us enough money for a month, maybe 2 months of revenue. So things started getting kind of scary. And the plan was I was going to put 50 grand in 4 times. And if I couldn't figure it out after 4 times, then we were gonna do something else. And that's not something I have ever had to do in the business before. I've never had to put my own money into a company like that to kind of keep it afloat. And I think a lot of people that are watching this right now are probably thinking why didn't you just borrow the money? This has been a bootstrap business from day one. I started this company with $3,000 that I saved from my teacher salary, which is a month of pay almost. And I've never had to borrow money for Millennial Money Man, which is Stellar Media Group. And I don't want to. And it's one of those things maybe as we grow and scale, we'll use leverage, but I've always felt like this is a company that we can grow from scratch. And so I wanted to keep it that way. So I put, a lot of entrepreneurs would say maybe this is a bad idea, but I put my own money up to keep it afloat. And then when it seemed like it was going to be really bad and it seemed like we were failing, and it seemed like everything was going to just, I thought I was going to have to cut my pay completely. That's when we kind of got lucky, but it wasn't really luck, and I'll explain that. We had been working with a couple of affiliate partners for a long time, sending them leads, and we had been doing it for years and making decent money with them, but it wasn't crazy money. It was just enough to keep us afloat. But then we went to our affiliate partners and renegotiated our deals. And what was cool about that is we had so much data. And one of the things that I've always felt like we needed to have as we grew the company was a lot of data on how much it costs us to acquire customers and how much it costs us to run ads and send leads. And so we had years of really detailed data. And we had put, I think, somewhere north of 100 grand into a tracking suite for the back end of our business. And so when we were able to go and renegotiate our contracts with these affiliates, we were able to multiply our revenue by a lot because we had exact data on how much money it was going to cost us to run ads profitably and scale for them, right? And so it was luck that there was enough budget to make that happen for the affiliates to come to us and have more marketing budget. But it also wasn't luck because it was something that we had the data in the back end. If we hadn't had that, we wouldn't have been able to renegotiate the deals we did. And so with the mixture of creating our own products out of kind of desperation, to be honest with you, and also renegotiating deals and scaling up our ad spend, we were able to go from me having to put $50K into the company just to keep it alive to revenue in 2023. And so it was a massive swing for us. And what was cool is because we had scaled down so much in the company and we were so lean and so broke, we had great margins. So we were able to just stack away a lot of money into different accounts. We started using the profit first system, and we started basically every dollar that comes in gets allocated to different accounts. So now we've been able to go from basically dead in the water and struggling to 5 employees. We've got 8 contractors. So we have a team of 13 and we're growing really quickly. And we've been able to scale to a level where we're predicting that this year we're going to do more than $3 million in revenue. And it feels like luck, but the reality is that it was a lot of hard work and years of hard work and then some risk to keep the company afloat until we actually made it. And I think that's a great lesson for entrepreneurs. It's usually not pretty. Usually everything sucks for a long time. You see all the Lambos and you see the Rolex watches and you see all that stuff. And it's either a lie sometimes, or it's the accumulation of years of hard work and stress and sacrifice and personal sacrifice before you actually make it. And so that's been my experience. And I think I have a pretty common entrepreneurship journey in that I didn't know anything about it, and then I got into it, and I've just survived all these years by not stopping. So, that's basically it, right? Like, I'm still growing the company. We have huge goals. We want to become a 9-figure business, which I know sounds kind of crazy, but we have a plan to get there over the next many years. But I think I just wanted to share this with you to illustrate that I was somebody that was broke and completely in debt, and I had no entrepreneurship experience. I was living in a 10 by 10 bedroom. And then over the course of 8 years, I've been able to go to pretty much my dream life, and a life that I never really thought that I would have for myself, by working really hard, taking risk, sometimes calculated, sometimes just dumb risk, to be honest with you, but just not stopping and always trying to learn and always trying to improve myself and grow a team around me. And I think the other thing that's really important is that you have to reinvest back in your business. I think one of the big stories, especially with what I did with Laptop Empires and how I was able to grow that company and how that company kind of like ballooned and then came back down to a lifestyle business, we didn't reinvest enough. And when I say reinvest, it's not just blindly throw money at your company, but you have to make decisions that are going to improve the company. And if you're always thinking that way, how can I invest to get the right people, to get the right data, to get the right whatever? If you're thinking that way, then your company is more likely to grow. Not saying it always will. It's more likely to grow than if you take it out and you go to Europe. Take money out of the company and spend it all on a lot of the cool things that you see on the internet. But I feel like if I can go from negative 40,000 to well over $5 million in revenue generated as a former teacher with no entrepreneurship background, then you can probably do some pretty cool stuff too. So if you've gotten to the end of this video, I want to give you something that's free. I know there's a lot of entrepreneurship advice out there that you have to pay for, but I know that it's hard starting out and you want some direction with your business, or if you're interested in entrepreneurship at all. So I put together a free guide for you that gives the top tips that I have for you as a new entrepreneur so that you can actually be successful. So check it out, click the link below, grab the guide, and thanks for watching.